So after the last few years, you may have a lot of equity in your house and you want to access that equity for whatever reason. Well, back in the day, cash out refinances were all the rage because we had all-time low interest rates. But now that we don't have those all-time low interest rates anymore, is a cash out refi still the best option to access your equity? Or is the home equity line of credit the way to go? That's what we're going to get into today. Let's get to it. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you didn't already know, my name's Jay Casa. I'm a real estate agent, investor, and builder here in Northern New Jersey. And if you get value out of this video after watching, please hit that like button down below and also consider subscribing. We are building a tight-knit community here of like-minded individuals looking to build wealth in real estate, and more specifically using the equity in their home in order to build wealth in real estate quicker than they would be able to without it. So if that interests you, definitely consider subscribing and hit that notification bell as well in order to keep up to date with our weekly videos that we provide to you every single week. Now, the last time I made a video about HELOCs compared to cash out refinances was 2 years ago, and obviously a lot has changed since then. And that's what we're gonna go over in this video. I'm gonna share with you first what a HELOC is, what a cash out refinance is, the pros and the cons of each, as well as help you decide which one is right for you. So first, let's get started with what is a home equity line of credit, or a HELOC for short. A HELOC is a revolving credit line based on the equity that you have in your home. It's basically a credit card attached to the equity of your home, and you could use it on whatever you want. Now, a cash out refinance, on the other hand, is when you refinance completely out of your previous mortgage and replace it with a newer mortgage at a new rate and a higher amount, and you pocket the difference. That's what the cash out part of cash out refinance means. You're taking cash in a lump sum out of your property and resetting your mortgage based on the current interest rate and the current value of the home. So what are the pros of the HELOC? Well, the number one pro in this environment, in this market, is the fact that you don't lose your first mortgage that most likely has a very low interest rate. You see, a HELOC is what's called a second lien position, meaning it's the second lien after the first lien of your property, which is your standard mortgage. So a HELOC allows you to access the equity in your home without losing the all-time low interest rate mortgage that you already have. The next pro, big positive of a HELOC, is the fact that you're only paying interest on the balance that you owe on the HELOC. Let me explain how this works. A HELOC, like I said, is a revolving credit line based on the equity that you have in your home. So let's say you have $100,000 home equity line of credit, but you don't have to use that $100,000 right away. You could just have it there, and as long as the HELOC balance is zero, it costs you nothing to sit there. And if you take out, let's say, $20,000 of that $100,000, you're only paying interest on the $20,000, not the $100,000, the full HELOC balance, or the full HELOC amount. This provides flexibility that, frankly speaking, a cash out refinance does not provide, because you're able to take out of a HELOC and pay it off as you please, as long as you're making the minimum interest only payments. That brings me to my next pro of the home equity line of credit, is that you only have interest only payments for generally the first 10 years. This is what's called the draw period of the HELOC, and it usually lasts about 10, maybe up to 15 years. After that, it basically converts into a more amortized loan, and this is called the repayment period, where you have to pay both principal and interest after that. And lastly, a big positive of the home equity line of credit, especially when compared to a cash out refi, is very low or maybe even no closing costs or fees. I've talked with you guys previously in my previous HELOC videos. My HELOC actually cost me absolutely $0 out of pocket. And if I don't use it, if it's a $0 balance, it costs me nothing. So there's really no harm in having it there in case of an emergency or an investment opportunity of some sort, as long as you obviously trust yourself that you're not just going to go use it to go pay off bills, or use it on daily expenses, or use it to buy a boat, or whatever you're going to use it for like an idiot. But that being said, HELOCs are not perfect. Nothing is, right? So the cons of a HELOC are quite clear. And the number one con is very obvious, and that's the fact that you're putting your home at risk of foreclosure, at least a higher risk of foreclosure than if you didn't have the HELOC. Just like any other lien on a property, if you stop making the payments, the bank will come after your home and foreclose on your house. And another con of the HELOC is that you're only able to, at least in this market, you're only able to really get a HELOC on your primary primary residence. That means you're putting your primary residence that you and or your family lives in on the chopping block and using it how you're going to use it. So make sure that you're using your HELOC on only something that's going to make or save you money. Don't use it to over leverage. Another con of the HELOC is that you generally have higher interest rates on a HELOC than when compared to your standard mortgage. In this environment, it's not that much higher, but it is higher. Right now, I would say the standard mortgage is anywhere from 7 to 8% if you have good credit. And right now, a HELOC rate is probably about 10%. So you do have a higher interest rate because the HELOC is a second lien mortgage and it's generally considered a more risky loan option. The next con to a HELOC is the fact that the interest rate is variable. That means that the interest rate can and will change based on whatever the Federal Reserve is doing at the time. Now, sometimes they go down and that's good, but sometimes they go up like right now. And that leads you to a lot of unpredictability. It takes away a lot of the predictability that real estate generally has. In my opinion, the long-term fixed rate mortgage is like the biggest advantage that real estate and real estate investing has over anything else because you're locking in your payment in perpetuity until it's completely paid off. And with a HELOC, you lose out on that predictability, leaving you a lot more susceptible to market changes and things like that. So keep that in mind, never over leverage and never hold a HELOC balance long term, longer than like a year or two, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And so we went over the pros and the cons of a HELOC. Now let's do the same for a cash out refinance. The number one pro of a cash out refinance is the fact that you're able to turn the equity that you have into your home into a lump sum amount of tax-free cash. Yes, any amount that you get in a cash out refinance is completely tax-free. It's not tax-like income. This is, after the long-term fixed rate mortgage, probably the second biggest advantage that real estate and real estate investing has over other investing options. The fact that you can take your equity out and not have to pay any taxes on it at all, and then go put it into another property if that's what you're planning on doing. Another pro to a cash out refinance, especially when compared to a HELOC, is the fixed rate that it has. We already covered this a little bit, but the fixed rate mortgage in real estate is the biggest advantage in real estate investing that you could possibly find because it locks in your payment and you know what that payment is going to be until you pay off the loan completely. So your payment stays the same and the equity goes up over time. And if it's a rental property, the rent goes up over time, all while your payment stays the same. Huge wealth building tool that real estate provides that almost no other investment strategy or any asset at all provides similar to. And lastly, the last pro of a cash out refinance is the lower interest rate. Since a cash out refinance is replacing your first lien mortgage with just another first lien mortgage, this is a much more secure, much more stable, much less risky loan product to most lenders or all lenders than when compared to a home equity line of credit, which would be a second lien loan product. And because of that, you get a better interest rate. Now let's get to the cons of a cash out refinance. The first con of a cash out refinance is actually the same con as a home equity line of credit. Anytime you're adding or changing the lien on your property, you do increase the chance of foreclosure because you're taking equity that you have built up in the property out of the property, giving you a higher payment each month and just more risk to the lender. So just like a home equity line of credit, if you stop making those payments, they can and will foreclose on your property. So once again, never over leverage and never take out more than you know that you could afford the payment on. The number two con of a cash out refinance is the fact that you have to pay interest on the full amount. Now, this is a big contrast between the cash out refinance and the home equity line of credit. So we used an example before on a home equity line of credit of $100,000. Let's say you have that $100,000 home equity line of credit ready to go. If the balance is zero, you pay $0. If the balance is $20,000 and you still have $80,000 available, you're only paying interest on that $20,000, not the full $100,000. Now, on the other side, when compared to a cash out refinance, let's use the same numbers to keep it simple. You're taking $100,000 cash out refinance. You're paying interest, albeit a lower interest rate than when compared to a HELOC, but you are paying interest right away from day one on the full $100,000. So you do take away some flexibility if you were to choose a cash out refinance over a home equity line of credit. Another big con of a cash out refinance is the closing costs and the fees are much higher than when compared to a home equity line of credit. As we mentioned before, a HELOC closing costs and fees are basically zero, where a cash out refinance, you're going to have to run title again, and it's probably going to be thousands of dollars depending on the state that you're in and the type of property that it is. So once again, let's use the $100,000 number. If you have $100,000 that you're looking to cash out, after closing costs, it may end up only being about $94,000, $95,000. And lastly, especially in this market, this may be one of the biggest cons to a cash out refinance, and why there's not that many going on right now, is the fact that you're using a second mortgage to pay off your first mortgage and replace it. The problem is, most of us, if you refinanced or bought your home before 2023, your interest rate is much lower than what's available right now. So if you have a interest rate of, let's say, 3% or something like that, and you want to do a cash out refinance now, you're replacing a 3% mortgage rate with a 7% mortgage rate. In most situations, that doesn't make sense. And once you lose that lower interest rate mortgage, it's gone forever. So keep that in mind. After going through all the pros and the cons of each the HELOC and the cash out refinance, which one should you do? Well, of course, it depends on you and your situation and what you plan on using the money for. Now, as I mentioned, if you bought or refinanced your home prior to 2023, when the Fed decided to start raising interest rates to combat inflation, most likely 9 out of 10 times, you're gonna wanna keep that low interest rate mortgage in place and not replace it with a much higher interest rate. Why would you? The only possibility that I could see that it may make sense to do a cash out refinance to replace your lower interest rate with a higher interest rate is if you have some massive, very high interest rate debt, like credit cards or something, on a large scale that you have to pay off ASAP, where that lump sum of money, cash out refinance, would help you pay off all of those debts that are, breathing down your neck every day. That would really be the only situation that I would recommend doing a cash out refinance to replace a lower mortgage interest rate. Now, in the other 9 out of 10 situations, the HELOC is probably going to be a better bet. Once again, depending on what your situation is and what you're planning on using the equity for. If you don't really need the money at all, you just want it for access in case of an emergency or something, just go get a HELOC. Or if you want to use it for, investment opportunities that may come up, get a HELOC. You could take it out, you could pay it off as you please. But that doesn't mean you could take out a HELOC and use it on whatever you want, like bills, living expenses, go buying a car, even home renovations. Don't use your HELOC on any of those expenses at all. No matter what you use it on, just make sure that it's short term. I would say under 2 years max. And you also need a clear and planned way to pay it back. If you have no way to pay it back, especially within 2 years, do not take a HELOC out or do not take a balance out on your HELOC. This leaves the HELOC to be perfect for short-term real estate investing like a flip. You can also use it using the BRRRR method, which stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. So in this situation, you'll buy a rental property that needs work. You'll either use the HELOC as a down payment or to buy the property in full, or use the HELOC to renovate the property. Once it's renovated, then you're able to go back to the bank and get a cash out refinance. Whatever cash out equity that you just built up with all the renovations, you use that to pay off the HELOC, and now you have a fixed interest rate and a fixed payment loan on a long-term rental property where the payment will stay the same and the rent and the value of the property will go up over time. Now, lastly, the only other option I could see, if you are looking to gain some access to equity in your home, maybe you have a lot of it, but you don't want to lose that all-time low interest rate mortgage that you already have, and you want to be able to use this equity long term. Like I said, you could use that BRRRR method on a rental property, or another option is using what's called a home equity loan. Now, a home equity loan is kind of a mix between the two, a mix of the cash out refinance as well as the home equity line of credit. It's basically a home equity line of credit, but with a fixed rate connected to it, which gives you a lot of stability and it allows you to know what that payment's going to be long term. Now, it will have a higher interest rate than a cash out refinance, but much lower closing costs, and you won't have to get rid of the all-time low interest rate mortgage that you currently have as a first lien. If you liked this video, you will love my custom-made playlist based on HELOCs as well as real estate investing. I'll put a link in the description box down below as well as up in the corner right now, so definitely check that out if you're looking to use your home equity in order to build wealth in real estate. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching as always. If you have any questions or comments about any of this, drop a comment in the comment section down below. I would love to start a dialogue with you guys. If you have any questions about when you should use a HELOC compared to a cash-out refinance, or if you have any experience yourself getting a cash-out refinance compared to a HELOC or a home equity loan, let me know in the comment section down below. Would love to start talking to you guys. And like I said, we're slowly building a tight-knit community here. So if you'd like to join, drop a comment down below. Also, check out our Discord server. I'll put a link in the description box down below if you want to check us out there. But I appreciate it as always, and I will see you next time.